When you think of Pride and Prejudice, your mind probably goes straight to romance, right? It's like the blueprint for every rom-com we've ever seen. But what if I told you that epic love story is kind of just the beautiful wrapping paper, and that underneath there's something way sharper and honestly a lot more realistic? Yeah, today we're going to unwrap Jane Austen's classic and really get into its brilliant, witty take on money, class, and what was basically a high-stakes game of social survival.
I mean, wow. It all starts right there with that single iconic sentence. It's got to be one of the most famous opening lines in, well, all of literature. And it sounds so confident, so clever. You read that and you think, okay, here we go, sweeping love story, I'm ready. But here's the kicker. Jane Austen is being completely ironic. The second you keep reading, you realize that this truth has basically nothing to do with what the single rich guy wants. Nope. It's all about what everyone else wants from his money.
So that leads us right into our first section, a truth about money, where we're going to deconstruct that opening line. And what's amazing is that the novel doesn't waste any time. It shows its hand immediately. I mean, the very first conversation we overhear isn't about love or who someone is as a person. It's all about a desperate financial calculation. It's Mrs. Bennet, and she's basically doing the math on her brand new, very, very rich neighbor.
And listen to this. She says, "Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls." I mean, this just lays out the real game being played, doesn't it? For Mrs. Bennet, Mr. Bingley is not a person. He is a walking, talking solution to her problems. He's a financial portfolio with legs. He's the escape plan for one of her 5 daughters. His personality, his character, that is a very distant second to his bank account.
Okay, so that brings us to the marriage marketplace, idealism versus realism. And this whole situation just drops us, bam, right into the harsh economic reality of the time. We're talking about the marriage market. And let's be clear, this wasn't some fun shopping trip. This was a fierce competition, especially for women like the Bennet sisters. See, their family home was entailed, meaning it had to pass to a male cousin. So for them, the stakes weren't just high. They were, quite literally, everything. And really, it boils down to this. For women in Regency England, a good marriage wasn't just a choice. It was a career. And that is the absolute crucial point here. For a woman back then, marriage was pretty much the only path to financial security, to social standing. It was the single biggest economic decision she would ever make. And the book makes sure you never, ever forget that. And what's so brilliant is how Austen explores this whole conflict through 2 best friends. On one side, you've got our hero, Elizabeth Bennet. She wants to be seen as a rational creature, someone who speaks from the heart. She's holding out for a real connection, for love and respect. But then you have her friend, Charlotte Lucas. Charlotte makes a choice that is pure pragmatism. She says yes to the absolutely ridiculous Mr. Collins, not because she loves him, heavens no, but for security, for a home. And while Elizabeth is horrified, the novel shows us that Charlotte's decision wasn't a romantic failure. It was a clear-eyed, totally realistic survival strategy. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the characters themselves. Because this whole theme of realism, it's not just about the social setting. It's baked right into who these people are, into their psychology. This is not your typical story with perfect heroes and evil villains. Not at all. It's a story about complicated, messy, deeply human people who are driven by flaws that are, well, super relatable. Just listen to this zinger from Elizabeth. She says, "I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine." That line tells you everything. The main conflict in this book isn't some magic curse or a big external bad guy. No, it's a very real, very human collision between 2 incredibly proud, stubborn people. His pride makes him a snob, her pride gets wounded, and that wound turns into a deep prejudice against him. It's a total psychological stalemate. This is not a fairy tale. In fact, Austen is so into this psychological realism that she literally has her characters stop and analyze these flaws right on the page. You get the bookish Mary Bennet spelling out the difference between pride and vanity for us, and you might think, oh, that's just filler, but it's not. It's Austen showing her work, you know? She's inviting us to look at these characters almost like they're case studies in human nature. And then, of course, you have Mr. Darcy's biggest flaw, his absolutely staggering class prejudice. I mean, listen to this line. He says, "The countryside doesn't really offer much to study because, society there is so confined and unvarying." That's not some kind of dark romantic brooding. It's just straight up snobbery.
He truly believes that Elizabeth and her entire world are beneath him. And his whole story, his whole character arc, is about the slow, painful process of getting over that very real, very ingrained social bias. Okay, next section, the cost of scandal. Because in this world, reputation is everything. And this is another super important piece of the realism puzzle. In a society where a woman's entire future depended on who she married, her reputation wasn't just, a nice thing to have. It was her single most valuable asset. It was social and financial currency. And the terrifying part? It could be completely destroyed in an instant. And this is exactly why the whole storyline with Lydia Bennet running off with Mr. Wickham is so important. I know some people think of it as a distraction, but it is absolutely essential to the novel's realism. When Lydia elopes, it isn't some fun romantic adventure. It is a full-blown social and financial disaster. It's a catastrophe that threatens to ruin her entire family, to make all 4 of her sisters completely unmarriageable. We're talking poverty and total disgrace here. And this table just captures the insane whiplash of public opinion perfectly. Before Lydia gets married, the whole Bennet family is seen as marked out for misfortune. They're social outcasts. But after Darcy forces the wedding, suddenly they're the luckiest family in the world. But look at the fine print. No one actually cares if Lydia's happy. In fact, everyone assumes she'll be miserable with Wickham. The only thing that matters is that a marriage license has been signed, the scandal is over, and the family's reputation is, for now, saved. It's incredibly cynical and incredibly realistic.
All right, so what does this all mean? Why are we still talking about and honestly still obsessed with this book over 200 years later? That's our final section, why it still resonates. And the answer, really, is its unflinching realism. The book has lasted this long precisely because it's so much more than just a love story. When you break it down, Austen gives us this sharp critique of social class. She shows us the harsh economic reality of relationships. She fills the story with characters whose flaws feel so human and so familiar. And she shows us the crushing power of reputation and social pressure. It's a tough world. And the fact that love still manages to find a way to exist and even thrive in the middle of all that, well, that's what makes the story so powerful and so timeless. So here's the bottom line. Pride and Prejudice hasn't lasted for centuries in spite of its focus on money, class, and all that social maneuvering. It's lasted because of it. Jane Austen's genius was that she refused to separate the romance from the messy, complicated, realistic stuff of life. And by doing that, she created a story that feels just fundamentally and forever true. And that brings us right back to where we started, with that famous opening line. It was Austen's brilliant, witty critique of the rules of her world. So it kind of leaves us with one final question to think about, right? What are the unspoken, universally acknowledged truths that are quietly running the show in our lives today, shaping our ideas about money, about reputation, and yeah, even about love?